Yes, good evening. The Design Review Board No.1 meeting of March the 5th, 2009 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present your case and speak on any specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the speaker cards, or postcards in this case, provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current Design Review Board agendas are available by calling our Design Review Board hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and Design Review Board reconsideration and appeals is available by the table at the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the Design Review Board decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his or her discretion. Roll call. Board Member Aliano.
Here.
Board Member Ellis.
Present.
Board Member Insua.
Here.
Board Member Simonian.
Present.
Board Member Yu.
Here.
Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on February the 26th, 2009. Election of chairpersons, long time in coming. We have been continuing this matter since January, and tonight we do have all 5 board members present. And so would someone like to entertain a motion for chairperson?
We haven't
Let everyone
actually
all at once.
discussed
Anybody
it.
want to? We actually haven't discussed
We haven't
it.
had an opportunity to discuss it. amongst
Would you
us.
perhaps like to move this item to the end of the agenda?
Let's do that?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, let's
Because
get
we're
through
kind
the
of
projects.
pointing.
that's fine. So we'll
Happy to
move this item to
continue.
the
Let's
end of the
continue until the
agenda.
end of the agenda.
You can
That
have
works
all
for
the
us.
meeting to think about it. Great. Oral
We'll be watching you,
communications.
Mr. Simone.
Oral communications. I have no speaker cards on oral
I
communications.
do not have any cards as well.
Chairman Simonian? All right, none. Review of calendar. There are no staff announcements as of yet, and there are no items on the consent calendar, which leads us directly to the Design Review Board regular agenda.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome to Design Review Board 1. We actually have 5 cases this evening, however, 2 of which are going to be continued for 2 weeks from tonight. And so the first case, which is 3319 Mills Avenue, will be continued, and also 4004 Boston Avenue will be continued as well. So if you are here for those 2 cases, please do check with staff and come back in 2 weeks. And so with that said and done, we are going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is 1-PDR-2008-068-A, 1640 Oaken Gate Drive. And Mr. Baxter, you are the staff person, so take it away.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chair, members of the board, the project is located over here on this side of our panel. We have a series of exhibits. We have some existing floor plans, site plan, the proposed site plan here. We have our floor plans, first, second, roof plan. These are our elevations. This would be our front, and the and this is the rear, and these are the 2 sides. We have some section views, a couple of different types of perspectives for you to look at. In a previous application, this floor plan, if you can discount the inside, because that's not what it is, but the exterior is going to be very similar to what they're actually looking at. And I think since it is a landscape plan, that's what we want to look at, want to emphasize. They have photographs. This is of the site itself. Pretty good photos all the way around. And this is photos in the neighborhood, if anybody wants to start with those. And we have a color material board. The applicant did bring a sample of the window material here. There is one note I'd like to make. I made a mistake in one of my comments on the textures materials. I referred to the fact that the windows would be fiberglass, wood clad, and then in another spot I said they're vinyl white aluminum, and that's it. They're fiberglass. Okay. Anyway, so The project proposal for the property at 1640 Open Gate is to demolish that existing home, which is 2,498, demolish more than 50% of the existing home, which is a 2,495 square foot mid-century modern ranch-style home, and construct a new home at 3,587 square feet, also 2 stories, except that the 2 stories for this will cross the entire second story, whereas the other one, as you notice in the photographs, is just a portion. This property is located in a hillside zone, but the lot itself is really flat, except for a small portion here at the rear of the property, which goes downhill, drops down. But it's very flat right here. If you've driven by the site, you'll see that that pad is large and relatively level. The applicant applied for a variance and a conditional use permit for this property because under our zoning code, when you remove more than 50% of a house, remove combined roof and exterior walls, the planning department recognizes this as a new house. And so the applicant asked to maintain their interior side yards. So that would mean, here is our interior side yards here on the existing house. So you can actually see what they have. And they asked to be able to keep their walls there rather than in the R1R zone, you'd have to have 10 feet on both sides. Chimney can extend out, but you'd have to move them in 10 feet. So they're meeting their front setback. It's just the 2 sides they asked to maintain, so these sides are going to be, well, if they're not, they need to maintain they can't be less than what the variance is for. And the conditional use permit, since it's now considered a new house, the lot width is less than 80 feet, 15 feet back, and so it just automatically triggers a review. Of course, there's an existing house out there as well there for the other homes and other lots in that neighborhood. A quick review of the neighborhood and comparisons. This lot is approximately the same size as other homes in the neighborhood. It's a little smaller than the average, but it falls within the range. Setback is the same thing. It meets the street front setback. Under the current proposal, the porch will maintain the same 15-foot setback area here. You can see this, but the rest of the house is going to be pushed back a little bit. You can actually see how it works here. The shaded area is a pushed back area, and here's does that work right here? Yes, here it is right here. This is more like what they're supposed to be doing. I'm not quite sure what he was doing here. This is all pushed back. You can see how it projects forward here. This home is existing 2-story. Most homes in the neighborhood are all 2-story. In fact, 63% of them are 2-story. This house is on the upper end of the floor area ratio. It's pushing the 40% maximum that's allowed in the new proposal. And the floor area ratio, it is pushing, of course, the maximum amount as well, close to 40%. It will require a 3-car garage. In the 3 categories of site planning, mass scale, and design, the areas that the planning department had highlighted, and I'll just try to go through them pretty briefly with you. The mass and scale is one that planning had concerns with. When you look at the photographs, I don't know whether the rest of the board members had a chance to review them for the neighborhood, but part of the issues for the neighborhood is the staff was looking at it, at the proposal, and we see a tendency towards horizontal or vertical styles, and we felt that this particular design had more vertical appearance, and we didn't feel it was consistent with other homes in the neighborhood. I've gone into a little bit more detail on that here in the staff report, but that's kind of a real quick overview of it. On the design, the existing house, one that we felt was be associated with the mid-century modern ranch style, constructed in '65, and we felt that that style, of course, is pretty consistent with the rest of the homes that were constructed in the neighborhood subdivision at that time, but that this new style, the Mediterranean one, that the way they've designed it again goes back to, seems to emphasize more of a vertical box-like orientation. We didn't feel that it was consistent with that overall neighborhood rhythm or harmony of the other building patterns, the new one. On the texture, materials, things of that nature, we felt it was pretty consistent with a few things. We have a condition on that, and I'll just go through the conditions actually. And I can highlight those points. Now, the applicant has made some great efforts to try to work with staff, so I wanted to state that. In fact, they have this exhibit here that they're going to go through to show where they have progressed. They've come and met with staff, and they've progressed from, I believe, they'll go through it with you, but like maybe these different versions over 3 different times, and then this is this right here. So, but they can go into more detail on it. So they met with this, as I noted in our comment section, at least 3 different times, made some efforts, but each time staff felt, you're not going far enough, so you are making efforts, and I'll go through that with you. So we have 3 comments or recommendations, conditions. One is submit a design of a 2-story house that is lower in height, reduces appearance of the second floor, roof and wall massing. House's vertical massing and box-like appearance needs to be more in scale with the site and the low-profile horizontal characters of other homes in the neighborhood. Not all homes are like that, but we felt that the majority were. And then we said if the Spanish colonial or other revival style is utilized, then all its details, its mass and scale needs to be authentic to that particular use, the style. And then in terms of the materials, the doors and windows, we're looking for recessed windows in the walls. We're looking for trim elements. Maybe precast may not be the best one in this, but it's just something to consider. Some of the molding, something to consider. The garage door to consider, and so we have that as part of our recommendations. So we are recommending a return for redesign. Pretty much sums up my presentation. I can answer questions. The applicant's present and the architect, as well as the homeowner.
Did we get the height of the existing house?
I brought it up to the attention of the architect, designer,
So
project
he
designer.
could answer.
Yeah, he's going to make a stab at it. He was not the original one that worked on this, but he is. This is his design here. So this is his design. So hopefully he has a kind of an idea on it.
Is the third garage requirement, is that above 3,400 square feet? Is that, what is the code on that?
All right, sir. If you have a house floor area that is 3,500 and above, somewhere right
It's
in there.
3,500, okay.
Yeah, 3,500. That's a threshold. When you hit that threshold, you require a 3-car garage. Then, if you're less than that, let's say 3,499, you can have you only require a 2-car garage, but your garage can't be higher square footage than 500 square feet. And as soon as you hit greater than 500 square feet, then the additional square footage has to be rolled over into the floor area. Okay? When you get a 3-car garage, anything over 700 square feet. So as soon as you hit the 35, and let's say it's 3,600 square foot house and your 3-car garage, it has to be less than 700 square feet, or else that's rolled over into the floor area. And that accounts against you on your FAR as well.
Do we have any more questions
I
for
have
Mr.
one
Baxter?
Sure. You know it. But this is,
Well, that is called a mistake, in which I talked to the applicant about, and that's not going to be there.
okay.
That's what they look like. Oh.
That's a mistake.
Not in my office.
What was the mistake?
This part right here.
Back at the back.
What happened is when the applicant came earlier, I didn't catch the fact that they had a garage greater than 500 square feet. So I dinged them, as I should have in the first place, and said, listen, you're going to have to roll it over into your floor area. Soon they rolled it over in the floor area, he had to redesign his interior, put in a tandem space, which is legal for single-family homes. And when he did that, he brought back some revised plans. When he brought back the redesigned plans, this showed up. I didn't catch it because I was looking at this,
Right.
and I was working under a timeline gun.
Right.
I was setting it up today, and I said, "What the heck is that?" And so I called and talked to him about it, and he said the same thing as I did. And this is what it is right here, and so this is what that is right there.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Anything else?
Do we have any more questions for Mr. Baxter? Well, thank you for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
All right.
Always detailed, which we enjoy.
Radio.
Golly.
And we have 3 cards on this case, first of which is the applicant, Petros Darkian. You would please state your name for the record?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Petros Darkian, 52710 Canyon Road, Duarte, California, 91010. As Mr. Baxter mentioned, this has been like a project 1 year in the work between myself, my client, him, and Ms. Stephanie. My client, they had a dream of living in a Mediterranean house. The city, they look at, what's in there. And they had an architect prior, which, he did a plan. There was some issues. So when I took over, the design was, again, you can call it modern Mediterranean, but we completely went in another direction. The issue, and as you see in the comment and the recommendation, was Mediterranean, quote unquote. What is Mediterranean? How much detailing in Mediterranean? What type of Mediterranean? Ms. Stephanie mentioned that, probably that area will take the most, that Mediterranean revival from early century. She showed us some pictures, books. I mean, we worked a lot, and I'm thankful to her and to Mr. Chris. And as you see on some of those, elevations there that, those are maybe 4 out of 40, we've been doing and changing, that it becomes very simple. I mean, there isn't difference between the modern characteristic of the house there and between the modern Mediterranean, revival. Oh, sorry, not modern Mediterranean revival. So the issue was, to keep the horizontality of the structure. And that's the main sticking point. That's the point we worked on for weeks and months. Every time we came with different scheme, every time we came, it's not enough. It's not, it's not what the city wants. And my client, if you see that elevation, the sketch there, I mean, that's what they had in mind, like full Mediterranean, like huge moldings and, this and the entryway,
The one in the brown sketch?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, then when they saw it, like, both of them, they went, wow, like, okay, we said, fine, we'll work on. So we believe that, the horizontality, it's there. I mean, probably what makes it more vertical than horizontal, there are 2 elements. One is that the roof is, hipped instead of gabled, which, will show that this is the horizontality of it. And the other thing is probably the bay window in the front, which we really try to give it some, character. We can't go too much to the back. I mean, the square footage they needed, their family is large family. They're spending a lot of money in today's economy. We can't cut on corners as the square footage to reach as the second floor more and more to give it that more horizontal, element. My client, I mean, that's not what they like, but, they're not very happy with what's in there. But again, as a compromise, and we believe that was really a compromise between what we started with and between what we ended up with. I mean, they will take it, and hopefully you agree with us and with effort we put in it. They run the plans and petition to the neighbors. I believe she has a 14 signature from abutting neighbors, mainly, on the street, on the, downhill of the street, that they all signed off that, they don't have any problem with the design. As a material, again, we're, introducing, high quality. It's going to be, smooth stucco, precast moldings, integrity, fiberglass clad windows. So it's it's a year in progress, and we knew the outcome, but we hope you disagree with staff and you approve the project.
Mr. Darkian, do you happen to have copies of those letters which were
Yes.
signed? that'd be great if you could let us review those. Do we have any questions for the architect?
And I would like to add some, actually, my client, she wrote the letters, and she had like 3, 4 of, it's not only one you want to approve or not, like, I mean, if you read them, you'll get an idea of what it's,
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions for the architect?
And I got section of the windows.
just have
if
one.
You guys want.
What is the approximate height of the existing house?
I believe, I mean, I was asked, I think it's about 23 feet.
23 feet?
So we're about 5 feet higher, and it could be not 23, maybe 22.6, but the slope of the roof is the same, 4 to 12 versus 4 to 12. The only thing makes the roof higher because, the second floor is wider.
Are these accurate for, pretty similar to the profile of the?
I can say 90%, 95% accurate, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is John Samuelian. I'm sorry. I couldn't tell if it was a V or a Z. But state your name for the record. Sorry.
My name is John Samuelian. I'm the owner of the subject property and also the co-applicant. All I have to say is the existing house is not consistent with the immediate area right now. My street, my area, the area houses are, my street doesn't have any character. Each separate house has its own character. You cannot say the street, the neighborhood is Mediterranean or Spanish or doesn't have any style. Therefore, originally we designed this house giving some kind of Mediterranean styles, and we showed the design to our neighbors, and everybody was excited about the project, and they are anxiously waiting for us to start because they feel that the renovation of our house will improve the area, bring the value up to that property. And again, I have about 14 letters from 14 different families in the neighborhood, and they are happy to support our project and individually signed. And that's all I have to say. I really would like to have this design, if I may. I love this design. My neighbors love this design, and it's a gorgeous design. We work very hard, work very hard, spend time, work on this design to bring something to be consistent with the neighborhood properties. In our immediate neighborhood, we have Mediterranean, we have contemporary, we have the Spanish, we have a ranch house, we have all kinds of houses in that very street. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next speaker is Joyce Samvezian.
Good evening, Mr.
Good evening.
Chair and Design Review Board members. As my husband suggested, my name is Joyce Samuelian, also the owner of 1640 Oaken Gate. My husband also covered pretty much of what I had to say. With all due respect to your opinions, whether it's opposing or applying conditions to the existing plan, as he also mentioned that we started with an orange, we now have an apple. But then we compromised so much to comply with the ordinance and the zoning and the feel of the neighborhood. We came up with that design. We can live to appreciate it, but truly it's not the true design we hoped and dreamed to have. The horizontal flow that they kept emphasizing, if you could see, that horizontal flow kind of gave us the feel of the box. We had many, many designs, different feels. I have one particular picture like this, which was also drawn by another architect prior to meeting the present one, and this was rejected because it had that vertical issue. So we put that aside. And And then a few other designs I brought over to the desk at the plan check, left it for Ms. Stephanie and Mr. Baxter to review and to give us a guideline before we were to invest any more time with the present architect, so we don't keep repeating drawing plans after plans trying to meet the standards of the neighborhood. And as my husband also emphasized, there's no particular style that I can take from my neighborhood and say, this is what I want, because they all have a different feel. There's one right across from me, which is, unfortunately, I don't recall the number. You have it in front of you. It has a true Mediterranean look. It's mostly it's one story, but the middle portion of the house is two-story. It has all the moldings and the feel of the column, and yet there's another 2 homes on the street that were done within the 5 years' time, and they also have that beautiful feel of two-story and not so mansionization as we always hear on this public access meetings. We have tried to respect also the privacy of our neighbors, so we don't encroach into their yards, bedroom, windows, views. Everyone has their own view, and at this point, it's very little difference from what we have to where we're going. If you look at my previous design, we've only gone from the L shape into a box right now. Unfortunately, we lost all the character from the beginning of where we started because, again, we had to comply with Ms. Stephanie's professional opinion and Mr. Baxter's guidance. And we're again hoping and pleading that you would approve what you see, which unfortunately is not in true spectrum, because we thought that was just total no, absolutely not. So therefore we end up with what we have.
Long process.
Long process. And we want to have this done and over with so my kids can enjoy it. This is the whole idea, is to have them enjoy this house. We're not doing this for us, we're doing it for them. And we're already in it for 2 years. It took us about 10 months, 4 or 5 times going back and forward to get to where we are, and it's still not our heart's desire.
Do we have any questions for the speaker? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on this case? No? And with that, the architect will have an opportunity, if you so choose, to have a few more words as a closing statement. If it's necessary, you may have 3 minutes to add
Actually,
a
I
few
need only
comments.
like 20 seconds. I mean, Ms. Joyce, she mentioned that, in the abutting, actually in between 2 to 3 houses, one cross street, one, I believe, left side 2 or 3 homes. You can consider those as part like Mediterranean, because the staff, report stated that, there wasn't Mediterranean, design structures in the neighborhood. I mean, again, all the homes, they were built mainly on that side of the street between 1965 to 1975. And then all those, you see different style, they went through renovation, remodeling, additions, all those things. So there isn't really one particular style dominant for the area. I believe anything you design and do, it will fit nicely, in that location. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. With that, we'll close the public portion for this case. Mr. Yu, do you want to start this one off?
Sure. I went to the site today, and I think the surrounding area, the houses around there are there's not, I guess, a consensus on style, but there's not a lot of ornate aspects to the houses. They're very, simplified, simple roof shapes. And it looked like the house that was next to it was done at the same period, like the architect said. And there's a rhythm that comes down the street, and as it slopes down, there's sort of the single-story area, and then there's the second-story portion, and it's usually on one side or the other to try to allow for air to circulate or between the houses and those kinds of things. And so the one thing that really worries me is on that, I guess it's the very top elevation. It's 5 feet from the property line and 2 feet as it kicks back on the upper floor, and it's just creating this really tall sort of alleyway going back. to the detriment of the neighbor to the left of that. And I'm having a hard time because the house doesn't reflect sort of the site-specificness of the hill coming down and sort of the rhythm of it as it comes in. It's almost just a large two-story box that's placed in sort of any flat area or lot that it could come into. The style of it, I'm not opposed to it or in love with or anything like that. I mean, I'd be okay with it. But I guess the planning of it on the upper level kind of worries me, and the fact that it is about 5 feet higher than the existing two-story that's there now. And also, I mean, any time when it starts pushing the maximum allowable FAR, it kind of worries me a little bit for that area. And the fact that, if you were to take off, 87 square feet, then you could do away with the third car garage, which is another 200 square feet of massing. It's not FAR, but it's massing.
And the garage is actually a two-car garage face, but the design is a tandem, which I
Right,
think
which is
goes
in the
around
back.
the intent of what the
Yeah.
whole premise of two-car, three-car garage wants to achieve.
Exactly. So that worries me. And I understand why they went that way, because I think they do have a lot that's a little bit narrower than most, I guess, in that area, which is what they got the conditional use permit for. So, I mean, those are the concerns that I have. I guess I'll wait to hear what you guys think on it.
Thank you, Mr. Yu. Mr. Aliano?
Great, thank you. Well, I really want to sympathize with the applicant. I think, for one thing, they make a very strong argument that street really doesn't have a very consistent style. I mean, I think what Mr. Baxter, though, was referring to was not necessarily that particular style, but just how things read. When you go there, you notice that everything is sort of, even on these pictures that we have here, you can see it. There's a lot of strong horizontal lines that sort of follow the slope of the street. So everything is kind of terracing down the street. And I think that's what you read when you go there. You see that very strongly. It's not about, boxes that sort of come out of the ground. And so from that perspective, I have to agree with the planner as well. So I'm kind of caught between those two things where both arguments are strong, and I think we'd have to find some middle ground here because I think both sides can be correct. I think in terms of the style, we see a lot of these kinds of designs on this board, and sometimes they get approved, sometimes they don't, depending on the situation. But I have to say, I've been on this board quite a while, and I always speak out about this, but nothing ever really happens. Is that people come in and they have this sort of Mediterranean style, that they want some French style, and it never is like that. I mean, there's just sort of these illusions that we have. I mean, this is not a Mediterranean-looking house. That one is not either. I mean, they have Mediterranean elements, but they're not true to their style. And so I always say, if you're going to pick a style, go all the way and sort of really study it and figure out what really makes that style so incredible and why you're so attracted to it, and sort of really study it so that you can build it and make it read the way it's supposed to read. So if somebody were to tell me we're going to a Mediterranean house, I would say, this is not a Mediterranean house. This is really what you see. And I don't mean this in a really offensive way, but we see this a lot. I mean, this is sort of what you see in large developments. People sort of design them like that, and they put them in right away because they're tangible. You can actually, build them. I mean, they're not that difficult to build. These houses are very easy to build. And so we end up with these how should I say, the norms basically that we use. There's sort of these, I wouldn't say this is a cookie cutter. I mean, that's sort of what I'm getting at, but because there is a lot of variety, a lot of thought put into this, but there are those elements there that sort of remind me of that, where, even the entrance, we just put a cornice or a molding around the opening. You can buy that out of a catalog. I mean, it's not really customized to this. So you get all these components and you can build something like this, and it's quite doable. I just think there's so much of this that it would be nice to get something really refreshing and really work with the neighborhood and trying for the owner to sort of get what they want as well. And so, having said that, I'm kind of a bit perplexed because I'm not really happy with having to sort of go along with something like this because, as I said, we see it a lot, and I would like to see something refreshing. That street, although I agree with the applicant that it has no character in terms of one particular style, that is, you could build a really wonderful home there that contributes to that neighborhood, contributes to the street, and eventually other people get to remodel their houses as well, and you get a very strong streetscape. One only has to go just down the street and go to Mountain and see how wonderful that street is. There's a lot of these really wonderful Spanish character types of buildings. One would even call them Mediterranean. But there's a certain quality there, richness about that street, for the most part, I think. And there's no reason why this street couldn't be like that at some point. So I think the real issue here, besides these two things that I talked about, is, how do you make something this big look smaller and make it fitting and have character? And I don't think we're there yet. I think the planners have tried to sort of maneuver this design in a positive way, but I don't think that the planners have dictated what this thing looks like. I disagree with that statement that was made earlier. I think this is really in the realm of the owner and in the designer and with the guidance of the city planning department, but it certainly isn't the city planning department responsibility of the designer, nor is it ours. So I think this needs another hand, another level of refinement to really bring it to something that the owner is happy with, because apparently they're not. I mean, this is really what they want. That's what they're getting, thinking that that's how the city directed them to do it. But again, the city's not designing the project. They're just giving guidance. So I would suggest that you go back to the drawing board and rethink some of these things and see if you can achieve the horizontal nature that's already on that street. See if you can come in and capture some of the quality of the details that you want in a Mediterranean house. The windows are one thing that you can focus on. All these bay windows that you see, and, this hexagon piece at the center, and then you have windows that are sort of have a horizontal piece across, and then you have a vertical for a slider. These are not the kind of style of windows that sort of even enhance the style. I think you really need to study fenestration. You really need to study the eaves, how those things work in a stylized, a style that you're trying to put forth. So at this point, although I would like to, help the applicant to move this project forward, I think I'll be doing them a disservice if I did not say what I just said. I think I'm doing this because I feel that it can be better, and it will be better, I think, with another iteration. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Aliano. Mr. Insulo?
Sure. Well, I completely support and agree with all the statements by both the other commissioners. And I've taken a ton of notes to try to capture my thoughts, but I think everything they have said is right on. So I'll try to be as quick as I can. We, DRB or staff, want nothing more than to approve single-family homes. It's been consistent for all the years that I've been sitting here. They work diligently with applicants, especially single-family homes, to get them approved. But when the staff and DRB for a long time are saying you're not following really the guidelines, the effort, what we're looking at, and you still want to go down this path, whether it be this one or whether it be this one, I think you're in for a blockade. You're not going to be successful. They have been up here for years and years, highly trained, highly educated, know what we look for, and when you want to do it your way because of whatever reason it is, you're going to struggle, and we don't want you to struggle. We want you to be approved. I can't agree more than what two of the comments that have been made already. You need to listen to these comments if you're ever going to be successful in this project. Square footage. You have a 3-car garage because you're only 84, 85 square feet above what you want to be. Conversely, what that also does is it makes your floor it makes your floor ratio right near the top set. So you can already start seeing what the intent is for this project and how it's affecting the site. The 3-car garage is meant to be usable. And the way that you're able to achieve a 3-car garage is to put one in tandem. The reason you need to put it in tandem is because the lot and the project was, and the property was originally designed in all those homes up and down the neighborhood as a 2-car garage with the house next to it. That was the way these houses were laid out. And you see that rhythm and pattern. I think rhythm and pattern is very important in this neighborhood. It may not have, for your eye, a discerning architectural pattern. It's mid-century. But you may not see it there. Okay, but there is a form and a rhythm associated with this neighborhood. 2-car garage, shifting horizontal planes coming down the hillside. That's consistent with the guidelines, and it's actually mandatory for us to approve projects which are consistent with the surrounding neighborhood. That doesn't mean that they all need to look the same way, but there needs to be some form or elements which are consistent because of rhythm and pattern as it works down the neighborhood. You mentioned that I don't think that this project is site-specific. The getting the variance to rebuild with exactly the same footprint, I'm all for. But when you get it to be rebuilt with the exact footprint, side yards, and then you have these high vertical walls and a box-like structure, I think it defeats the whole purpose of why you got the variance, in my opinion. I think you got the variance to say, okay, build your new home. You have already an existing home there already. We're not going to penalize you by coming 10 feet on each side of the side yard setbacks. That's just wrong, because there is a prevailing pattern along that neighborhood of the existing side yard setbacks. So you got that. But then to go with these big vertical box-like structure, again, I think goes inconsistent with the intent, like the garage and like the floor area ratios. I am sorry that it's taken you so long, but I truly believe that if you work with staff and had been working in a constructive with them initially, we wouldn't have come to this. They're very good. And if they're giving you directions of look at the form and the pattern, and you still go in this direction, maybe the only person you have to blame is yourself. I don't know. But that would be my impression. They talk about horizontal forms. They talk about modest scale. They talk about horizontal patterns. They talk about forms that are going up and down the street. This house doesn't do that. They talk about this house as very vertical and box-like. You can see it. You can argue whether this home would fit architecturally within mid-century homes. Perhaps a house that was more horizontal and achieved a Mediterranean look could. I don't believe this ever will, because there is a prevailing mid-century pattern there that is more form and working down the hillside. Their comments are right on. I think Chris did an extremely very thorough, detailed review of this project in all the different areas, whether it be setbacks, whether it be building heights, whether it be floor area ratios, whether it be zoning. You just read each one of these different points in which they argue their point, and I think it's an excellent, very well descriptive of what's wrong with this house. But you didn't want to listen to it. The recommendations for staff, I think, are right on. And so in summary, light and air are issues, which you mentioned. This is not well planned on the site nor the neighborhood. It's about context. I think if you look at and take our comments, plus the staff that you've been working with for so long, and really weave in those comments into a design, I think you're going to be successful. But I think you're going in the wrong direction with this site and with this neighborhood. And the applicant made a comment. He said, this is a great design. I absolutely agree. That is not a bad design. But it's not contextually correct on this site. So often homeowners make mistakes, and designers and architects. It's a great design, and it could be argued. It is a good design. But you leave out context, and I think that's what's missing here, and it's a significant miss.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Ellis?
I would agree with my colleagues. I was surprised when the discussion of no prevailing pattern. I think Mr. Insua really nailed it. It's a horizontal. It's at mid-century modern. I would agree also. I like, actually, the pencil drawing, but it doesn't fit the lot, and I would support staff's recommendations on this project.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. It seems as though this board has completely agreed with staff, what I'm going to try to do is to really simplify some of the comments that have been made to try to help your team out going forward. And the way I'm going to try to help you out is really pinpoint 3 areas of the design that I would concentrate on. So as when you come back, you'll have an easier time going through the process, maybe. The mass is the big one. The existing mass of the building works with the neighborhood. So you have the 2-story on one side and then the 1-story on the other side. If you try to at least come up with a design that plays along that mass, it'll certainly help. Secondly are your windows. I would simplify the windows and really be true to the style. That's going to help a lot. And the third is the balcony in the back. Just doesn't really work and it throws off the design. So those are 3 simple points that I would suggest the architect to really concentrate on. And by coming up with a style and then designing a building true to that style and concentrating on those 3 items, I believe we'll have a project that will be more approvable, as you might say. By breaking up the mass and having the 2-story on one side and then the 1-story on the other side, that will alleviate your 3-car garage. You might even consider moving one of your bedrooms downstairs if possible. What I'm trying to do is at least to point you in the right direction, because I hear your frustration, and it's loud and it's clear, and that's not the intent of this board nor the city to create frustration. You have 14 neighbors that have signed approvals or support of this project, that are in support of this project. And I went through them, and 6 of them are actually on your streets. So here you have a situation where the neighbors don't seem to mind the project that's been presented. However, staff and the board feels as though it doesn't really go along with the guidelines. And the neighborhood doesn't have an existing style. Absolutely. It's just a hodgepodge of designs. But the idea is to slowly start changing that and to come up with good examples of architecture, so when these homes start getting renovated down the road, they'll be following good examples as opposed to bad examples. So that is the intent. It's not personal. It's not coming down on your project specifically. It's just trying to set good precedents and good design guidelines going forward. So with that, I hope some of those comments helped you, and I hope you come back quickly, taking a look at these points and coming up with a project that we could look at one more time.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I've got many bits and pieces of comments and context, but I'd like to ask is this: when you look at the staff 3 conditions that we have here, can we keep those as they are? Can we eliminate some? Can we add to those so that we have like a clearer idea? So that can we tie some of your ideas into those, or eliminate some?
Well, if I may just at least throw out my thoughts on that, and we could start a discussion on that. I'm afraid that if we add too many conditions, we're just going to confuse the applicant and the architect designer on this. I think everyone really put their thoughts out there, and they're very specific, Mr. Yu, Mr. Aliano, and Mr. Insua. And I believe that it really does come down to those 3 or 4 items that I pointed out. So my opinion is that I think your report is right on. It's very accurate. It's precise. It draws a specific reference point as to where the city wants them to be. And if we go with any more detail, it's going to convolute the matter, I believe.
I would agree. And in addition to that, I would say if we added a point, just number 4, I would say completely with what you're saying. Use the body of the text that you've identified here, because each one are so well written, plus the recommendations, and let the design and the designer and architect move forward with what we've been saying.
Would that be the board when you said recommendation? Would that be the board recommendations?
forgive me, the comments and how you dissected the various aspects of it, I think are right on, and I think that could be a very helpful tool for the applicant. So
Yes.
include that as as a requirement.
Yes, yes, yes.
Plus the comments that you have would be something I would think would be a very helpful tool. I would utilize it as a very helpful tool to try to get what I want into the design.
Is there a consideration of considering it with a two-car garage? That was something that came up here. You guys, would you rather not start getting specific? Because I would certainly found that to be.
I too. I mean, the whole neighborhood is based upon a two-car garage and the width. I think it's very important to achieve a two-car garage in this project. I think making it a three-car can't be achieved across the front, so you're creating a tandem, and I think that in itself continues to emphasize the potential boxiness of it, because you're now having to push back a garage element that could have been used for maybe residential living portion of it. So I think the three-car garage fails in two areas. One, it's not the neighborhood designed for three-car garage, and it potentially increases the box-likeness of the design.
Well, I guess the decision to be made is if we want to make that a condition, or if the comments that are being made and have been
Are
made
clear,
will suffice as
Yeah,
far as the
Yeah, I'm fine with
intent
that.
is concerned.
I think there's enough here in these comments for them to really move in the right direction.
Those are the staff comments written in the staff report are acceptable to you. You don't want to embellish or delete any of those.
I don't, especially the recommendations that you have here,
Okay.
pretty much what we'll be talking about. And the idea is not to give specific direction, because
Right.
you don't want to tie the designer's hands. You want them to be free and hear what we're saying and be creative and interpret what we're saying, so that they come up with something that's acceptable to us.
Very good.
So this does that. So I don't know. You put more conditions if we make it. I mean, there were three comments that you made that could be added. They're a very simple sort of summary, but that's the essence of all these notes
Right.
that you made. So.
And I don't even think it's necessary to add it. I think
Right.
it was just to try to help you as some thoughts. So I think that any more will just be confusing the matter. So it seems as though we're ready to maybe make a
I'll
motion.
move to send for redesign with the staff record of decision.
So we have a second
Second.
Yeah, Mr. Insua.
from Sua. I'm sorry, 1 second here, please, Sua. Return for redesign. So Mr. Ellis, return for redesign. Mr. Insua will be a second, with the same conditions that we have in the staff
Yes.
report. Okay. Mr. Aliano? Yes,
Yes.
Mr. Aliano?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Ellis, Mr. Ellis. Sorry, I'm trying to do alphabetical.
You want to do alphabetical?
Yeah, I'm trying to do alphabetical.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Insua?
Yes.
Mr. Yu?
Yes.
And Mr. Simonian.
Yes.
5-0, return for redesign with the conditions in the staff report.
Thank you.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Baxter, for a wonderful presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Our next case is 1-PDR-2008-076-A, 660 Bowman Road. And Mr. Rather Duong is our case planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, board members. This next case for your consideration is a proposal to construct a new house on a vacant lot. The proposed house will be 2,124 square feet. It will be built on 3 levels, and the lot area is 7,120 square feet. Prior to getting to this point, the project was required to apply for a conditional use permit and standard variance for the slope which exceeds 50%, and the standard variance for a lot size under 7,500 square feet. This property is located in the Woodlands, the Rossmoor neighborhood, which is a Woodlands neighborhood. And as stated, this is a hillside property and zone R1 all-floor area District 2, which allows floor area up to 40%. However, based on the subject property average current slope exceeding 40%, the floor area ratio is reduced to 30%. Both conditional use permit and standards variance application were approved by the zoning administrator, And additionally, an initial study was prepared and adopted by the zoning administrator as well. The proposed house will be designed in the contemporary ranch style. Will be provided with a two-car garage access from Bolick Road. The subject property is irregular in shape and has two frontages. Bolick will be used as the main entrance, while Kavanaugh Road is located to the rear. Based on the zoning of the property, both streets will be considered street front. Therefore, the structure is required to be set back 15 feet from both streets. And that's what the architect has done. The longest setback will be for the garage because it is required by code to be at least 18 feet in length, the driveway of the garage. The site planning of this project, given the condition and the topography of the lot, is consistent with adjoining properties and other properties in the area. It appears to follow the contour of the lot. And as you can see, the front elevation is very low in profile. It has a horizontal feel to it, which is consistent with the ranch style. However, the rear elevation offers much more visibility due to the drop in the slope. However, given the treatment and the material and the break in the building plane and the building form, it mitigates some of those concerns and the massiveness of the building as seen from below. As you can see the different forms in the building and the material with the ledge stone and the clear glass and the railing offers, particularly the extensive use of glass in the back as well as in the front, offers transparency and really breaks up the mass of the rear elevation even further. Just some, and that is also reflected on the north elevation. You can see the different forms there and the use of the materials at appropriate location to offer balance. The one concern staff just want to make is this south elevation. While there's some consistency in material, the treatment of it may not be in tune with the rest of the other elevation. It appears a little bit more massive, even though this is not as big. Staff suggests that there be a window here or windows just to break up that wall a little bit more and to make it more consistent with the other elevation.
That's the garage side, correct?
That's the wall of the garage, yes. So as stated, everything appears to work together really well for this project when it comes down to the style, the chosen material, and with that staff recommends approval of this project with some conditions, and these suggested conditions are the south elevation should be modified to include a window or windows to break up the mass further. All windows shall be recessed. I mean, it appears that that's the case, but we just want to make sure that the windows for this particular project are critical in terms of that it be set and there's a three-dimensional quality to them. And again, the metal railings, while it was not clear, staff is suggesting that it should be metal cable because of the lightness in appearance, and that will also soften the perceived mass of the building. So from far away, the metal cable will almost disappear into the background. And with that, I conclude my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm available to answer them, and the architect as well as the homeowners are here also. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. You know what? Is this a wall, a retaining wall that's marked on the? You know what that is?
It's not called out,
Yeah,
so
I didn't know.
I'll have the
All right.
the design, the architect.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you. The architect, Hamid Zorabians.
He's got a model. I haven't seen one of those in a while.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the RB.
There is a table there. If you want, you could maybe...
Yeah, I was going to describe it.
Oh, okay.
Can I kind of pull the table
Yeah, of
forward
course.
and put it on?
Shows up
It'd be easier.
There's a small stand here as well. Maybe I can use this? All right. I don't know if you can all see it. So. Show you different views of the massing model. Well, first of all, let me state my name. My name is Hamlet Zarabians. I'm the project architect. My address is 3800 La Crescenta Avenue, Suite 209, Glendale. The reason that we've done the massing model is to be able to describe different planes and to be able to explain how this building is going to work. And what you see there is actually a scale model of what we have designed. And this massing model was done prior to going to conditional use permit hearing and the zoning variance that we had applied for. It was done in 2008, and since then there were just minor detail work that was changed on our plans, and that just occurred. Is there any microphone?
No, unfortunately, perhaps what you might want to do is put the model on the opposite side.
Over there?
Over there. And then
Would the pointer stick help?
this way.
Thank you, Lelia.
And this side. Oh, very good. That helps. Innovative. That's great. So, from the very beginning, what we did with this project is because, as you can see, it's a very unique lot. It has two frontages, one coming from Covina on the west side, and you're coming up to Bowling Avenue. And so it has two sides to it, which is two frontages. Each will require 15 foot of setback, besides the garage, which requires 18 feet of setback in front of it. So, counting also the side yards that are required here, we basically established what was our envelope, if you will. So we established an envelope so that we don't come back and start challenging the ordinances. We challenge setbacks and so on and so forth. So it's very clear. I mean, this is a very narrow lot. But this was an envelope that we started working on. Then we did a few schemes, one entering from down below over here to put the garage in the bottom. We tried to put the garage on this side and whatever. But obviously, what we found out was this was our best solution. And I think that's the most logical solution that there is, especially when we had a flattened area here, I would say, on Bolig's side. If you look at the contours, we didn't want to actually necessarily challenge the contours, and we've just basically end up working with the contours. So that's where the entry happens. So I'm going to turn this around. This is what actually the entry looks like. So when you're coming up from, you've been there to the site, I'm sure. So when you're coming up from here, this is where the entry works. So where we have the garage and the entry right beside it, and it's a glass enclosed kind of a foyer that carries itself down. That's the main circulation, which is a vertical circulation that connects all three levels together. So from here, you're going to be seeing a one-story house. And the rest of the structure is hidden from you when you're driving from here. You're going to see the landscaping and so on and so forth. But when you're coming from below, obviously, you're going to be seeing the 3 stories of the building. Now, if you look at it, what we did, close to 40% of the length of the building itself is 3 stories, but the rest of it is still 2-story when you're looking from down from the west side, from the Covina side. And what we've done, we decided to go with a modern look, and modern design is very difficult to present in 2 dimensions, if you will, because there are a lot of different angles and so on and so forth. So that particularly this corner over here, if you don't do a sort of a 3-dimensional view of it or a model, it's very hard to explain. It looks really flat, but this is what we've done here. This is part of the living room downstairs. The living room here, and then the master bedroom below it. So what we've done, we have many planes that we have articulated, and what we've come up with is also a deck and a swimming pool built into the design, so the family can enjoy the deck and the flat area there, and which is going to be kind of nestled into landscaping that we're proposing. what happens is that that's going to be, that particular deck is in a living space level, which is above the bedrooms. So this is how we have distributed the uses. As you're coming in, you will have the entry foyer and the garage. And then when you're going to the second floor, which is below, which is the first lower level, that is where you have your living, kitchen, dining, and that's the main living area there, which connects to the deck itself with the swimming pool. And then the bedrooms, all three bedrooms with a study room or some sort of a sitting area or lounge area, will be in the very bottom level. All three levels are going to have a very nice view. I mean, we've tried to take advantage of the views as much as possible. As the staff mentioned, we have used a lot of fenestrations and a lot of glass to make it much lighter than it is. And all in all, it works very nicely in a given site, and we worked with the contours, and we feel that this is the best location where you would actually utilize this site the best. And doing this, we did not want to impose any hardship on views or any securities and so on. We did not compromise that. So there is a sketch, it's a section which is in your package. If you look at it, you can see that we have drawn a section through the building itself and shows the next property which is above our property. And as you can see, it's very, very high from the roof of our building, and so I don't think there's going to be any issue there as far as the views are concerned. Security-wise, we don't have any close. Oh, we're going to finish up. Okay. Well, I just want to mention that we are using very high-quality materials, and everything is self-explanatory. And this is the model, and this is how it yields itself too, with the exception of a horizontal line here that we have introduced and continued the deck. So if there's any questions, I'll be available. Other than that, thank you.
So the model doesn't show.
That horizontal line?
Doesn't show.
Yeah, it doesn't show that.
We brought it all the way.
Correct. What we did,
But this is all one plane, right?
no, actually, it's not on one plane.
Can we see the model? Can we bring the model here?
Yeah, sure.
Because I want to.
It used to be.
Oh, I see. So that's. Oh, I got
You
it.
see what I mean? And actually, this is now below. And yeah. As you can see, it's not in the same plane, but we have actually pushed this portion further in. That's how it is on the plans. And then this, when it comes over here, it actually slants a little bit. There is another angle that is introduced that it slants. You can see the shadow line there. You see? So that wall actually slants over and creates that kind of a triangular.
This wall is slanted.
Well, it comes over here. It slants from here.
It's out this way.
Yeah.
And is
It
that the
slants
balcony
there.
on the top then?
Yeah.
Okay.
But why does this wall slant here? I don't understand.
Well, you can see that if you look at the second page from the left,
Slanted here.
Ms. Olian, if you can see that there,
Oh, I see.
yes. It just ties very nicely together there.
So it's another little portion.
Exactly. So that just more emphasizes more horizontality, and we didn't have the central glass area between the bedrooms, which we have added after that. And that's the only difference from here. And then obviously the railing in the model, it's more of a solid kind of material, but we're going to be using a metal main frame railing with cables.
Here.
Yes,
And this is plaster here?
it's all glass.
No, the frame.
Yeah, the frame? No, the frame is plaster.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
It's plaster, yes.
And all the brown material is the
Stone.
Stone veneer.
Yes. And that's how we've gone through three different schemes, and in the discussions that we had with Stephanie and the staff, we decided to eliminate another material, and then we just replaced it and we polished it, basically.
And these are slanted, right?
They're a little bit slanted, yes.
Those wood? Painted wood?
No, they're actually metal.
Metal clad or metal? Steel?
No, they're metal, steel.
Steel exostructure.
Yeah. And then and it's supporting that steel beam on top of that, if you can see. There you go. That's right.
And that's going to be painted steel.
Yes.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Do you know offhand what this is representing on the?
Yeah, that's the way the existing wall is.
wall?
I'm sorry?
It's a wall?
There is a very small, short, about 18 inches or so. Yeah.
That was,
Yeah.
And the other question I have is, I was out on the site,
Yes.
and I couldn't quite figure out where that particular, because it seems like it drops 30 feet, almost straight down, and I'm kind of wondering, how you going to, what, is that fill?
That's more like on the other side. No, it's not fill. Actually, we're not touching, in other words. What we've done there, it depends on what angle you're cutting the contours, and it lends itself to a kind of a weirder shape. That's what I'm saying. The model really helps to understand.
But yeah, it certainly does on the building. I was concerned a little bit about the lot.
Yes, no, we're not going to do. Yeah, exactly.
It's a steeper part because the lines
Oh,
are
right, so then the lines are missing that.
So as you're coming in, we got some steps there, a small pond, and then when you're coming into the foyer, you're gonna see the view at all the time as you're, as you're coming through the house, into the house, you're gonna be exposing yourself to the view all the time.
So, but when you extend this out,
Yes.
what's happening down here? It looks like there's 3 windows there on the
Yeah,
drawing.
that's
So
what I'm
there's
saying.
another
We have
window.
introduced another window over there. We didn't have that. So this was interrupted over here. It was more showing vertical. So what we did, we actually slanted this thing. So now we have that terrace continued, so to more emphasizing this vertical element, this horizontal element, to tie it together, in other words.
It's a good move.
Yeah, because the model, without that, it looks
Yeah.
like it's missing.
Yeah, it's, again, like I said, it's not a finished model, but it helped us a lot. This is something that we normally do when we have a very steep slope. I think it's one of the best way of understanding it. But we didn't go back and, redo the model, so, sorry.
Okay.
Do we have any more questions for the architect?
On the landscape-wise, and I think, did you have I thought I saw a plan here, was there? Yeah. Are you removing all of the existing landscaping that's on? It's, it's a vacant lot, but I noticed on the south side, there's a lot of trees and stuff. Is that?
Well, there are very few shrubs and some, right in the front, there's some shrubs and so on and so forth. That's going to be all clear.
That'll be cleared up. Yeah, I was thinking toward that existing house I guess it's to the south.
Whatever you can see in the landscaping,
Right.
that it shows a certain percentage areas that we're going to be landscaping.
Okay.
Those areas there, yes, we have to clean up to be able to do landscaping.
Okay.
But the rest of our intention is not to clean up everything and then take out anything that there is there,
Okay.
as much as possible.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll leave the model here.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Tigran Pasmajian. If you would state your name for the record.
Sure. Tigran Basmajian. And good evening, members of the board. I remember, me and my fiance driving up, looking at the lot several years ago when we were deciding to buy it. And it was unique to begin with. And, we fell in love with the neighborhood, to be honest. And we pictured ourselves living here. And lo and behold, 3 years later, we just got married last week, and here we are today.
Congratulations.
So,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Honeymoon.
We worked. I know we shouldn't even be here right now. Right?
Exactly. You shouldn't be here right now.
But we wanted to make sure that we do this right, especially because, like Mr. Zarabian said, it is a double-sided property in terms of street location. What I loved about it is that it's got a lot of clearance on the entrance side. You've got basically a large round area for especially parking, entry and exit. And that's what we felt as though we could benefit from, but especially from the fact that it's got that slope, we wanted to do it right. And Mr. Zarabian's obviously got the track record to handle this kind of project. So, I think it's gorgeous, and throughout this entire thing, we've kept in touch with the neighbors, and we want to make sure that we work alongside them. Their main concerns were the quality of materials, and I think we've accomplished that. It's not going to be cheap, but we'll live with that. And especially knowing that, there hasn't been anything there for quite some time in terms of, not only that street, but for over a decade, nothing's been built there. So what we wanted to do is make sure that we're not going to be, encroaching on anything that's, or hurting or disturbing it in any way. And I think the stone does a great job. And I'm no professional, but it looks gorgeous in my opinion. And we went back and forth on design for over a year to make sure that it, looks as good as it does today. And we'll continue to work with the neighbors. And, moving forward for even landscaping and such. And we've already had conversations. So we're here to do this right. And like I said, so if there's, I think throughout this entire process, it's been smooth because, we're working with alongside Rather, and, he's been helpful. So I think that's pretty much it. And we're here to help. So if there's any questions, please let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is D. Black Tift. I guess they left. We'll come back to them later if they're still around. Next speaker is Barry Magnus.
I'm Barry Magnus. I live at 650 Bolick. I'd be the neighbor to the north of this property and this project. I'm here to say that I approve all the designs on the house and stuff. I think it's great. They did a good job in their design and all the elements they chose. So I'm really happy with that and how they've sided the house on the property. My only one concern is the Kavanaugh side, where we have the 3 stories right in this area. Since I've lived there a long time, I kind of know that hillside, and I know what the issues are with it. It's a little bit tough for anyone to articulate what's going to happen, because once you get a tractor in there and you start cutting away and building, you may have a different topography at the end of the project. So I'm not sure how we need to deal with it. The new owners seem really ready to do anything it takes to solve those problems. But it's just a concern of mine. On the picture, you see it's rounded like this, but in reality, it's really a sheer drop-off. Now, once we defoliate that, because you're going to need to build on that, we just have to consider what's going to hold that wall up and what's going to mask that cliff as far as landscaping and stuff. And those are my only concern. Other than that, I think the project for a house, being in my neighborhood, that I couldn't ask for a better house. It's not one of those faux Mediterraneans that are going to go next to me, so I'm really happy with that. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Melissa Carson Magnus.
Evening. My name is Melissa Carson Magnus, and I live at 650 Bolick Road. I love this house. It's a great house. It's going to enhance our neighborhood. I love the way it's built into the contours of the hillside. I love the horizontality of it, because particularly on Bolick, not so much on Harrington, but on Bolick, we have a lot of horizontal homes, several mid-century modern ranch-style homes. The attention to detail is fantastic in the materials, and as my husband said before me, the cooperation has been fantastic. I have some really serious concerns with the I have concerns with the landscaping. I'm a landscape professional. I'm an ASLA member, and I'm concerned, one, with the slope. Yes, it has deteriorated in the 12 years that I've been there. It slides every year when it rains. There is a sheer drop, so I'm concerned about the elevation when you're looking from Kavanaugh up. That it's a pretty tall elevation. I don't think that's a problem in terms of architecture of the home at all. I think they've dealt with massing really, really well. I love the glass. I like the changing of material from steel to stone, and the plaster. All of that's going to mitigate all of that. But all of a sudden, there's this area right in here that really is sheer, and which my fear is going to deteriorate some more. The landscape plan that's here and the plants that are called out, I think, are unrealistic to deal with masking that. If you look at the way that the architects presented the conceptual of these drawings with all this greenery around it, I love the concept. I'd like to see how can we retain that concept? How can we nestle this home into this beautiful landscaping, and including this area? What are we going to do about that? The plants that are called out aren't going to do it. They're not the right thing. The other concern I have is these 2 rows, sort of a hedge of Canary Island pines in a fire-prone area. I myself have stone pines that were planted there back in 1960. I'm not going to remove, these huge things, and they are a fire hazard, and I recognize that, but I'm not sure that adding more pine trees in and not in a rigid little row like a hedge really benefits the area. Most of the neighborhood, and we're very close to Chaparral, is very naturalistic in feeling, so I'd rather see mixed screenings. Other than that, I love the drought tolerant, the careful California-friendly planning in the materials. And again, I know that primarily we're about architecture here, and the architecture is gorgeous, and the new neighbors are wonderful. So I would have to say I'm for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. I was told by staff that Tift, the black Tift is gone. Is that what?
Yes, it appears that 2 individuals who turned in speaker cards are no longer with us. So.
Is there any other individuals in the audience that would like to speak on this case? Because if you would come up, state your name for the record, and then afterwards you could just turn in one of these white slips.
A speaker card, please.
Or you could do it now if you have it.
I know there's something else.
Very good.
I'm David Burghardt. My wife Verna's here. We live just down below at 726 Bowleg, the Bowleg that starts up this side here. And what we like to design, we've first seen the new neighbors, and that's fine. We welcome them. Our concern is, like the other neighbor said, right down here, because really this is an intersection where Bowleg takes off and comes uphill right here. And I'm worried about disintegration of this piece of the property here. If you look at it now, there's even crumbling going on out there on the road. And this intersection here is the only access for 28 homes that are all up in this area. So we're a little concerned during construction afterwards that this hillside right here is secure enough. Perhaps a retaining wall of some sort along the bottom would enhance the home even more and make it secure for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers in the audience? Would the architect like to come up and get a few minutes to address some of the comments that were made?
Well, I mean, if there is any more questions, as far as placing a retaining wall below the again, it's a good opportunity to state my name again. Hamlet Zorabians.
It's an audience watching.
Yeah, exactly. So Hamlet Zorabians, I'm the project architect. My address is 3800.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Hamlet Zorabians. I'm the project architect. My address is 3800 La Crescent Avenue, 209. Glendale. Shall I state my phone number too, or website address?
Only if you want.
Thank you, that was enough.
So, as far as the retaining wall is concerned, if there is a need for that, definitely we're up to it, and we can just put in maybe a 24-inch retaining wall.
I know, because you're very good and well known in the city. Have you had an opportunity to meet or talk to engineering and see how your concept is working with some of the things you may want to consider for on-site retainage of soil and during construction?
Yes. Okay, what happened was that during conditional use permit process, this project was reviewed by the engineering section. If you look at the report, they already have their comments there.
Okay.
So what I would suggest is that obviously you're going to attach those requirements of the CUP and the zone variance to the DRB. And so they have already extensively, they had more than a month to review it. We had a SOS report submitted to them, and recommendations along with that, and so on and so forth.
Do you recall some of the items within that report?
Yes, I do.
Address it, just briefly, which may alleviate
I was just
some of the
reading
concerns.
it.
Pardon?
I was just reading those
Very
comments.
Good. Can you name some of them which may alleviate some of the concerns of the homeowners concerning, particularly in those areas where there's a lot of slope?
I have reviewed the SOS report myself, and this area over here is a very strong base. The bedrock is very strong. They're not anticipating, there will be any deterioration to the major parts of the slope itself. It's just what you're seeing there. If the incidentally that it comes down, washes down, it will be just a loose soil. So some of the loose soil will continue coming down if that's the process. So we're going to definitely submit our drawings to the engineering, and if they ask us to put a retaining wall in the below, we will put it. But there was no such a specific requirement from the stated or required by the engineering department yet.
Got it.
The comments were just very general.
And because, you're well-known in the city, as part of the submittal for plan check, especially in the hillside
Yes.
area, is having the engineering department look at how you're retaining the soil as part of the approval process.
Yes, it is.
So hopefully that helps alleviate that there will be engineers by the city of Glendale looking at the stabilization of those soils as part of the approval
Yes.
process. So that doesn't mean they get it right, because often we think we're going to get it right, but there is a process in place.
In every project, I just want to add, in every project, I'm very much concerned about the soil content and the stability. So I do a very extensive study of that. So if there was, in my opinion, something that would jeopardize or compromise the stability of the slope, I would have already mitigated that. It's not that. I think it just would be just the topsoil, perhaps just washing away. What I want to say is that the extra landscaping and with the foundation and the new piles that is going to go here is going to actually further help the stability of the slope. It will be much better than what is now. Right now, the water is just gushing down and going everywhere. We're going to have positive drainage all around the building, and it's just going to go through the site. So, that's going to help it in the long run.
Right now, you are not, when the water's coming down from the street up above,
yes,
water towards the house is going to get captured behind the house at the top of the hill.
Yes.
Are you, because I know you're in schematic design right now and design development as well. Once you get into working drawings, I suspect your engineers are probably going to design something that to allow for that water to be carried around the house. And normally what happens in hillsides, which is not what I'm recommending here, which I'm sure is not what you want either, is to have these ugly concrete swales all the way around the house.
Oh, no, of course not.
Yeah. So, that's something that I think, you'll work it out, but we're assuming that nothing like that is going to happen, that you'll be able to capture the water somehow and be able to get it down below to the lower
Yes.
portion. So once you do that, you're not eroding anything. I mean, you're not allowing the soil to carry the water. You're plumbing it. You're doing some kind of
Correct.
drainage.
Correct.
So I'm not so worried about that. As far as the lower portion, to see does require retaining wall, I guess you have to put it. But it seems to me that a house like this, because I stood right in the middle of that slope, and it's very, very steep. And there's no question about it. But the way you've designed the house, I suspect that your engineers will probably have some kind of caisson system where the
friction
piles that drive into the soil, where you're not really doing a lot of grading, you're not really cutting
Correct.
a lot of soil, you're just basically boring these, 40, 50 feet sometimes caissons that come into the ground that kind of hold the house up. So it's quite okay. I mean, I suspect, you get pretty deep caissons there, I suspect, because you have to go past that, where the slope starts to cut across. So as far as the stability of the house, I think I'm sure you'll get engineered right. And once you do that, and if the water doesn't come around, then your drainage on
the west side? I mean, over north side?
I'm trying to get oriented.
Yes.
Yeah. It will be less because now you're not bringing all this water down.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
that remains to be seen, but I think, with a good team of engineers, you should be able to solve it. No problem.
One question. Could you address possibly the landscaping questions, the concerns that were brought up by the neighbors?
Well, obviously, our neighbors are professional landscape architects, based on what she's stated. And I think we met again during last hearing, last time. And the thing is that I cannot directly answer that because our landscaping was done by a licensed, California licensed architect. I mean, landscape architect.
Okay.
I don't want to state the name, but it was done by Mr. Larry Tyson. So there might be some issues there which I cannot actually speak to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it could be resolved. I mean,
it could be resolved. I mean, these are not major. It's just species and how we're going to achieve that. There might be some, disagreement, not in a negative way, but could be resolved.
I suspect that in the next 20 years, this will be the one issue the homeowners are going to be dealing with, and this hill moving down.
Yeah.
Having lived in Adams Hill and watched
Right.
the hills they're moving to the river.
Yeah.
And,
You know, I want to comment on that. Any empty lot is actually hazardous to any other property because they wash away. There's no way that you can retain it.
Right.
Their fire pose a fire hazard. They have the water deteriorated and everything. If the project is allowed to build there and it's done nicely, actually it's going to help the neighborhood. That's what is a very positive thing to do.
Thank you.
And now that they require the fossil filters and everything, all of the water that's collected is actually cleaner as it comes off into the...
Yeah, I mean, if you go that direction, correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, that concludes the public portion, and so we'll close that, and we'll move on to our internal discussion. Mr. Aliano, do you want to start this one off?
Sure, I'd be happy to. It's nice to critique an exciting and well-designed project. It's more of a sort of a general critique. I don't really have anything specific to talk about because I think the team designers have done a pretty nice job addressing a lot of these things, and I don't know that it's really necessary to sort of address particular details because I think that this particular design will get resolved the right way. Just judging by what I see and just also knowing what this applicant can do. I'm glad that there was a clarification on the model because I really think this piece it's very important to make sure that this piece reads across, just like you've designed it. In fact, if there's any way to make this distinction even more, it'd be even better. But that's in the process of development. You might find some other ways, but because I think when you're standing, in terms of the site plan, if you're standing here, you're just driving up. Probably want to minimize the verticality of that as much as possible because it's right there. I mean, it's right in front of you. So by bringing this base across, it helps a lot because now you try to create as many planes as you can that are not all kind of in the same. I think that will help it tremendously. I like the idea of having this all in glass because as Rather stated, was it Rather? Yeah, it was Rather. It creates a little more transparency. I think he really articulated that very well. If it were not glass, then you don't get the transparency and it feels a little bit more massive. So really, in terms of mass, all you really read is really a little bit of this and some of that, but this is fairly low in comparison to that. So I agree with that. I think, I'm not quite sure about that. I think I understand the shed roof because it follows that. But from this angle, because it's such a prominent view, as you've developed the drawings, I wonder whether you can find a way to kind of resolve that in a different way, where it doesn't feel too much like a shed roof, area, because it is something that you see immediately. So I wonder whether this could be integrated, sort of a little bit more with this. Maybe some of these lines come across. I'm not sure. I'd sort of leave it up to you during the design development stages. But in general, I like the material that you're using. I think the stone is very nice. But I do have to agree with the landscape comment. I think, if for some reason it's shown or your landscape architect agrees with the comments made by the neighbor, that something needs to be done to this portion of the slope, and down below here. And I think that's something that's really worthwhile investing into, because I think, in my opinion, whatever species you choose there, they should be something that stabilizes the soil and also mitigates that connection of the base of that portion of the building and the landscape and the slope itself, because that cut, it's not a harsh cut, but it's it's right there. As you come up the street, the building is right very close to you. So I think a mass of landscaping right at the edge. Let's see, what can I show that? Right, I guess the best way everybody can see this. A mass of some kind of landscaping right here, I think would actually help, because then you start terracing. As you come up the the landscaping actually allows you to terrace. sort of in a figurative way, and allows that building to feel less prominent on the street. Because I think that's the main thing. See, everybody's used to looking at that hill with nothing on it. And, this is going to make a huge change in the neighborhood. I think a positive one. And people have to get used to it, like everything else in that area, anywhere else. I mean, at one point, there were all hills there, and there were maybe a few houses. So this is just another piece that's filling in the area. And, the design is very nicely done, so I think it's a positive addition. But you do have to think about these things, which you have. I mean, you've thought about the building, how it's all scaled, and landscaping. Perhaps, if there's more thought to that, I would suggest to look at sort of those things. What else can I say? I like the windows that you selected as well. I think, the metal clad is a good choice. Not sure about, I guess, in terms of the glass itself, just from out of curiosity, is it a tinted glass, or is it a clear glass, or what kind of? Slightly tinted. There's not a lot of color to it, right? Okay.
We can't have cross-communication with this being recorded, but the architect is saying it's going to be tinted.
Yes, it's going to be tinted. Okay, thank you. All right.
What was the architect's name?
So I'll leave it at that. I think you've done a very nice job, and I look forward to seeing your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Aliano. Thank you. Mr. Yu?
First, I'd like to commend, I think the architect did a wonderful job, and I think it all started with the owner. I think they sought out a design and a lot that's challenging in a sense, and so you found somebody that was able to tackle that and come up with an idea that, and you could tell by the placing of the masses and where it is that the site was studied. It wasn't sort of, this is what I have in mind, and so we're going to plop it on there, and that's what it's going to be. It's very sensitive to creating a base, and where a lot of the program is, and it builds up, and it steps. So as much as it can, as it goes up the hill, and it creates sort of a very low profile, sort of very small house up there when you're looking at it from the upper portion, and I think the use of materials is very good. I think Mr. Aliano was right. Continuing that base all the way across, I think, makes a big difference. And if something you could do maybe to a little bit distinguish that would probably be nice too. But I'll leave that up to you. One thing I think it's unfortunate that there's no actual program space at the upper level besides the garage. It would be nice to at least have like a sitting area or something, because I think your best views are going to be sort of in that high space up there. And I just throw that out as an idea. And I don't have much to say about it. I think it's well done. I think it's going to definitely add to the neighborhood. And to go back a little bit about the stability of the site, I think it is going to stabilize sort of the upper portion of it, and the requirements that fire has on replanting the areas, removing the native or the stuff that's there now, and putting the the jute mesh and replanting all that. It is going to stabilize the hillside a little bit more than it is presently, and so I think they just left, but to alleviate a little bit of their concern on that. And I think that this is a good example of actually taking very simple planes and floor plans, and then articulating it as you go up with the different materials. And again, it's well done, and so I'm ready to support the project as is.
Thank you, Mr. Yu. Mr. Insua?
Sure. You made two good choices a couple years ago. Lovely bride and a fiance when you saw the site, and a very skilled and talented architect, especially on the hillside. So the only one I'm going to elaborate on is the architect and the work. I can imagine when the city is approving variances for a very steep lot, if I was the approving party, I would say, as my kids would say, oh my gosh, what have I just done? Because this fear is that on a very steep site, what are you going to get? And this is a classic, wonderful example of taking a very difficult site, taking someone of talent, I forgot your address and all that stuff, someone of talent and skill, and executing something that the city would be proud to say, we approved that variance. This is a perfect example of what is good when we approve variances. From the very beginning, you wanted to do a good project. You wanted to respect the site. You wanted to utilize the site as best as possible. The architect explored a bunch of different angles, bunch of different opportunities. They just didn't get. And this often happens, and architects and designers have to have the courage to say, no, that's not the best thing for this site applicant. Even though you're paying me money, I need to tell you, no, this is not the right design. No, this is not the right approach to the site. No, this is not going to get approved. I often hear that the applicant and the designer or the architect says this is what the homeowners wanted, and they struggle with that. Architects, designers need to say, no, you're paying me money, and I want to give you my best opinion. Whom among us goes to a doctor and tells them, don't cut off my arm when it's halfway falling off, or whatever? That's why you go to professionals. People in the community need to listen to the designers and the architects who are doing your job. So when they say that's their dream house and that's what they wanted and that's what the applicant wanted or the homeowners wanted, for me, it doesn't work. It also doesn't work when the design doesn't fit the context, and this does it so wonderfully. And again, we want to approve projects quickly. We probably spent more time talking about it because we get excited when a project is done well. We probably spend too much time when a project is done poorly because we want to give you good direction. From the variance process that was approved to the execution of the design to thinking about its site placement to thinking about the kind of architecture you want to put in the site. One of the things that is discussed here is that it's a lush site. I consider this architecture lush. It's speaking well to it. I can go on and on, but what a wonderful project. And in closing, I think that this should be another one of those projects we put into the binder. So when people want to find out what is a successful project, it's not about the architecture. You may think that the architecture is not your cup of tea. Okay. But how does it fit on the site? How does it work? How does it work within all those elements? And some of those things are hard to put into words, but when you see it, it's successful. So put this in that binder. If anybody ever wants to know what works well on Hillside, this should be another shining example of how it works.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Insua. Mr. Ellis?
Thank you, Mr. Simonian. I do agree that you've done a wonderful job. My concern was the slope, and I think it's been discussed well enough here. I'm ready to support the project. Look forward to seeing the house.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Ellis. I agree as well. It's well designed. The massing and the placement, the overall concept of it is correct. The approach is right, and it just feels right, and it's going to be a good project moving forward. As far as some of the comments that were made about the dirt falling off, currently the existing topsoil is eroding, and it's going to continue to erode. I'm not sure if the retaining wall is the right approach, maybe a debris wall, a 36-inch debris wall. I'm sure the bedrock is very close to the surface at the bottom there, and so it could be on conventional footings, and so therefore as dirt comes down, it'll get stored down there and it gets cleaned once a year or twice a year or whatever it might be, but a debris wall is probably the right approach. But overall, I like the way the design nestles into the hillside, and I like the fact that it's got the different planes. That's exciting, to have the different planes and to have the different angles. And overall, you were able to get a deck in there with a pool, which is not easy to do. And so, job well done, great addition to the neighborhood.
And that pool will have sun for a long time because you situated it perfectly. It's good. And I like that the house is tucked back from that pool, so in the afternoon sun, you don't have a house blocking the sunlight. The house is back. You got balcony. You got pool. It's just, what a good job. Oh, I'm sorry, your address again?
Yeah, thank you.
So I could support the project as well, obviously.
I got one.
Yes, Mr.
I'm
Ellis.
sorry. One quick question. The staff conditions. I would, agree with those. They had 3 points, and I think we've discussed them already.
That's right. So of the 3 points, the third being the metal railing should be cabled. The architect already pointed that out, that was the intent. The 2 being the windows recess.
Okay.
Sorry, we can't have crosstalk.
And first, as far as the windows placement along the garage, that's something the architect could maybe take a look at.
It doesn't bother me that much. Initially, I could see it, but if you notice, this part of the house is jutting off this way, And this one's this one. I think the shadows and stuff may not be as plain as it need to be, but you can work it out. I'm good.
But in a window in a garage is a good thing, I personally, just some light. And at this point, I don't think there was any light in there.
I'll leave it up to him.
If I may
Make it a
jump in.
consideration.
Yes.
I was going to say, it sounds like it's a consideration or a comment
Yes.
rather than a condition.
Right. I would agree to that.
Staff also heard other comments, most of which were really positive. However, Mr. Eliano brought up a couple of items, specifically regarding the massing of the landscape from Kavanaugh towards the mid-section of the lot. Would you like to place that as a condition?
You mean the landscaping? I was
Yes.
talking about landscaping. Well, I think it can be a consideration. I don't know that we can condition because we don't know what the building and safety is going to say about that in terms of how to stabilize that. But if you could consider during the design process, in terms of the planning there, I was thinking a strong massing of planting there would actually work nicely. That could stabilize the soil, maybe a ground cover with some other higher forms. You could put that in there, sure, but it's not.
But it would be a consideration.
Yeah, because I think that needs to be thought through by the design professionals and see if it works.
And the other item was pertains to the shed roof. That you want to see that better integrated into the overall
Well, you can
design.
make it as a comment, but it's not it's something that I'm sure that as they develop the design will get resolved. So.
Okay. Sounds great.
I'd like to move to approve with the comments and conditions.
If I may interject, which ones we're having as comments and conditions, so we're clear on that. I'm
you
sorry.
have to figure that out. Stephanie always does.
The three conditions that are identified here, the architect has indicated that they're fine, they'll work it out. And then the other ones are the comments with Mr. Aliano indicated a shed roof explored, see if there's another option there. The comment of
Those would be considerations.
considerations of adding a window to the garage area.
Consider.
So with those,
And I wrote something related to site stabilizing landscape on the slope.
The mass.
but I think
Yes.
That was as a
Commissioner Aliano
comment.
said that
That's a
it's
consideration.
considerations that will
Consideration,
get worked
exactly.
out in the
Right.
design process.
But it should be noted because
Yeah.
that way they can follow up on it and see what they can do about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got that.
Thank you.
You moved?
I did.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Insua and a second by Mr. Ellis. This will be roll call. Mr. Eliano,
Yes.
Mr. Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. Insua,
Yes.
Mr. Yu,
Yes.
Chair Simonian.
Yes.
Motion passes to approve the project.
We're kind of unanimous today, aren't we?
Yeah, we're going through.
Nice work.
Does the board want to take a 5-minute recess until or just plow through the
Let's
next
plow
one?
through the next one.
Plow it.
Yeah, well,
Very
I'm
good.
okay. You guys okay?
If we could have order, please. Please, we have a hearing in process.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
We're still working,
Taking your
folks.
congratulations outside. So-
Our next case is 1-PDR-2008-065-A, 206 South Kilnworth Avenue, and Mr. Brad Collin is our staff person.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
It's our last case, right?
I'll give you a quick tour of the plans. I'll sit down and give my presentation. A partial presentation as well. What we have is an existing single-family house in a multifamily R3050 zone. The subject house is located at 206 South Kenilworth, and it's an unusual shaped lot. It's 62 feet wide by 50 feet deep. The subject project has a variance for setbacks both from the front for the garage and for the interior yards. The proposed addition is a first floor addition off the back, a new second floor addition, as well as an attached garage. The existing front portion of the house is proposed to remain. Presented before you, I have a site plan that shows the footprints of all properties within 20 feet of the subject lot, and you can see that the subject lot is sort of an odd orientation in relationship to the other lots. Its front yard is the interior of the neighbor's property yards. I also have a
plot plan, roof plan for you, as well as the proposed first floor and the new second floor. I also have colored elevations as well as a rendering, and then some maps, material sample board with several other exhibits with the different colors and materials of the different elements of the house. And Mr. Simonian has the photos of the surrounding area as well as the map that goes with it. That's basically what we have here. This is the first time submittal as a final review before the board. It was continued from the February 19th, 2009 meeting. To go into detail, the applicant's proposing to remodel and add 32 square feet to the existing first floor and add a new second floor that will be situated behind the ridge line of the existing first floor. The second floor will be 761 square feet. And they will be attaching a two-car garage off to the side or south of the property. The total addition, including the new two-car garage, will be 2,033 square feet. The existing one-story residence has a low profile. As mentioned, the existing floor area is 799 square feet. The footprint of the existing house will be enlarged by approximately 473 square feet, which will be the 32 square feet off the rear and then the two-car garage. Staff believes that the addition is broken up around the perimeter of the house, and as a result, the proposal does not appear substantially increased in mass and scale. The proposed massing maintains the character of the existing house. And additionally, the mass and scale of the project appear to relate well to the surrounding neighborhood due to the location of the new second story toward the rear of the house and the articulation of the proposal. The proposed building height, setbacks, and floor area are appropriate for the neighborhood. The neighborhood is comprised of a mixture of single-family and multifamily residential zones. Although there is no predominant style within the neighborhood, the architectural styles that can be found are traditional styles from the 1920s and 1950s, period revival, and minimal traditional. The existing house appears to be influenced by the Craftsman bungalow style. The proposed materials for the house include vinyl windows, horizontal siding, stucco, and asphalt shingle roof. Vinyl is being proposed to replace the existing windows with wood trim around the frames. The windows are recessed in from the wall. Staff believes that the vinyl windows are not appropriate at the front. Staff is recommending that the existing windows on the ground floor and the second floor at the front be replaced with either wood or fiberglass, and they should be double hung, single hung, or fixed pane. However, if the board is comfortable with the vinyl windows, staff would recommend that all new vinyl windows be recessed in from the wall or provided with wood surrounds and be double hung, single hung, or fixed rather than sliders. Staff's opinion, the proposed overall texture and materials of the proposal appear consistent with the Craftsman bungalow influence. The quality and design of the proposal is appropriate for the neighborhood. Planning Department believes that the character of the neighborhood, the Planning Department believes that the proposed addition will be harmonious with the character of the neighborhood, and the Planning Department is recommending the project be approved with the following conditions. And staff has two recommended conditions, the first being that the windows facing the street should either be wood or fiberglass. The windows should also be either double hung, fixed paned, recessed in from the wall, and or have wood trim around each window. Number two, that the second story roof should be gable to match the existing first floor rather than the hipped roof proposed. Staff is recommending approval of this project based off the two conditions. And the applicant and owners are in the audience. I'm available for any questions if the board has.
I had a question. The gable, the hip that you're referring to is the one, see here, the orientation.
Off the first floor?
Sorry?
Off the first floor?
Off the second floor.
Yeah, right here. I think I referred.
On the north elevation.
Three-dimensional drawing might be the best one to use as a reference.
But you were, yeah, you're referring to that, to remove that and make that a gable? Is that what you're saying?
Make it
Because everything is gable, there's no hips anywhere. Let's see.
Mr. Aliano, which portion?
I think he was referring to this hip.
Yes.
To remove the hip and make that a gable.
Nice.
Correct? Yeah. That's-
Which it looks like it has.
That's
been
what it
done
looks
there.
like in the
Yeah.
rendering, but that's not the way it's shown there.
Hard to see in that, eh?
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? No, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Collins. I have one speaker card for this project, and it's Max Gill, the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Max Gill. My address is 10842 Victory Boulevard. I just wanted to come up here. The case planner did an excellent job describing the project. I just wanted to mention for you guys to take into consideration as far as the lot, it's an unusual size. It's one of the smaller residential lots that I've seen. When we comply with the setbacks, it leaves us, there's no real way to expand the property other than going up. And that's one of the things I wanted to mention. And I'm also here if you have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions for the applicant?
I don't believe so.
No? Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on this case? I'm being told no. Well, very good.
No es necesario, está bien.
Then with that, we'll close the public portion. Mr. Insua, do you want to start this one?
Sure. I think you did a really nice job. Did you do the design? Okay. I think you did a really good job. I just look at the floor plan, modest house, and the way it works and how you put the second story in. I think it's very nice. I especially like on the exterior elevations where you continue to use the stucco plus the siding and then play it around. Very good. Hiciste un trabajo muy bueno. Gracias. Qué bueno.
He understands it. He said the right thing.
Ah, seguro.
Thank you, Mr. Insua. Mr. Ellis?
Yes, it's interesting. 2 of our 3 projects today have had properties, the lots, that are unique and very difficult to deal with. I tend to agree with you. I thought, based on what you have here, you've done a nice job. My only concern are the vinyl windows, and I would highly encourage you not to use vinyl all around. I mean, go to anything other than vinyl in the house. I could not support vinyl, certainly on the street side. That would be my only condition.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Mr. Yu?
Sure. There's actually a note on here that talks about 2x6 stud walls. And I wanted to get a confirmation on that. I guess all exterior windows should be installed on wall, the inside, the stud. We recommend use of 2x6 studs on all exterior walls. Is that a note to themselves, telling them that they recommend it to themselves, or what is?
That's on sheet 6.
Yeah.
Note number 2.
Is that saying that they will use it, or that they think about using it, or what are they? Just because I would hate to see a 2x6 stud wall and then have, vinyl fins attached to the exterior.
No, I think that's probably a mistake. It's
You know?
2x4 framing, and yes, you're right, Mr. Yu.
It doesn't look like it's a 2x6.
No, it's 2x4.
Okay, so we'll assume it's a 2x4 then.
We can add that as a clarification on the record of decision.
Okay, yeah, I think the site is sort of challenging in the sense, it's in a neighborhood where you can go up and the massing is okay on there. A couple of the elevations, I like the use of materials in a sense that it is sort of putting masses together. The north elevation is a little bit more challenging to see than the other ones. I think the other ones work a little better. You have a full sort of 2-story mass on the north elevation. My other question would be, it seems like the windows have 2 different size casings or trims around them, and I'm wondering if that's something that's Because, for example, on the north elevation, on the upper one, it looks a lot thinner than it does on all the rest of the... But then I thought it was maybe if it was siding, it's a different size than stucco, but then it's really large again on the stucco on the east and west and the south sides. So maybe that's just a graphic.
A consistency.
But I don't know, we need to, get that consistent. I'd prefer, I think, the smaller. The large ones are kind of overwhelming. I don't know if it's the color or... But...
So we could condition its size.
They can
as
figure
far
that
as
out,
it-
yeah. But besides that, I'm okay with the project.
Thank you, Mr. Yu. Mr. Aliano?
Thank you. Yeah, it's a very modest project in terms of, and you've done a nice job. I do agree with the comments, but I do have to echo Mr. Ellis's comment. I would discourage the use of the vinyl windows. In fact, I would require that we at least go to another level up, which would be the plexiglass, not the fiberglass clad, which are just a little bit more expensive, but at least you'll get a nice profile on these windows. I think the windows they're such smaller profile there, and plus they have this sort of plastic look that I think the idea of the siding with the nice wood door, the garage door, and all that, everything being painted. You want to have a window that's also paintable, or at least looks well integrated into the whole facade. And the vinyl, I think they stand out. I don't encourage that. So I would say at least go to a fiberglass paintable surface, which are not that much more expensive. The other thing that I wanted to add was, the garage, the way you have the elevation right here. I'm not sure, that this sort of band of plaster here, which is very minimal in terms of material. I wonder whether it would be worth it to just at least do the facade and maybe just return the side a little bit and make all this siding so that it's all siding to here, and then you have this little sort of clear, almost like it reads as a clear story in the distance. Because I think this little bit of stucco here, plaster, with this piece on top, which is the the siding, I'm not sure that's...
You could really actually, in the three-dimensional picture, it really jumps out, what you're saying now.
Yeah, it's just doesn't, it sort of creates a sort of zone that's, you won't read the whole house because you got a fence here, and you're going to read a nice siding all over, and then you got a little strip, little itsy-bitsy piece of plaster right there. So I would say, if anything, if you can't do around the corner, at least do this all siding, just maybe wrap the corner a couple of feet until you get to a window or something, so that, at least that all reads monolithic and more meaningful, I think, because you got too many materials there just on that surface.
Just for clarification, and this is in reference to the west elevation?
Yes,
so
west elevation.
That little strip on the second floor would actually be plastered as opposed to...
Not on the second floor,
around the garage door.
Above the garage door.
Around the garage door.
Yeah,
Okay,
around
so
the
forgive
garage.
us, because we weren't able to see where you were referring to. Okay.
You can see it
The
here.
rendering, there's a plaster area around the garage. Make that all,
The
because...
rendering actually
all the
looks a
same
lot
place.
smaller. I think it's supposed to be a bigger band.
Yeah.
Oh, I am.
See how it
I
ends?
see it. It's much bigger here than it is.
Yeah.
Well, that goes along
They
with the
actually
windows.
show this thing coming off of the
Right.
top
But that's...
of here, almost.
So would that be a consideration, or would that be a condition?
What does the board feel about that? I think it will make it nicer. It's
I
very
agree.
minimal amount of siding.
But then that whole three-quarters of the facade will be siding then. Are we okay?
Well, basically, just do the head over the garage door, the two jamb sides, and a little bit at the corner there, and then just wrap the corner just a little bit, just enough to, or even bring it all the way across. So if you wrap the corner, you could end the siding somewhere here, for the window.
And another issue, Mr. Aliano, which you're pointing out, is you have the stucco here, and then it turns the corner, and then you have this odd triangular shape, whereas on the other side of this, it's actually siding over here. So you have siding on one side, It might just be better to go siding all the way around on
Well,
a house this size.
I mean, I know cost is an issue, but it's just all pieced together. I think if you did the whole house in siding, it would look a lot better. I think.
And you know, the colors of the stucco and the siding are very similar.
You know, one note, however, if you look at the site plan,
almost the same
those
color.
two sides, the north and the south elevation are nobody's seeing those other than. Well,
Yeah,
you know,
I understand.
yeah. But it does make a difference. I understand where you're coming from.
Yes, I'm not sure if we're hearing consensus on
No, you're not.
Discussing.
You're absolutely right. You know.
Well, Mr. Aliano, is there anything else?
That's it. I was just bringing that up. I think, at least over the garage, if they can do something there with the siding and wrap the corner. And then what else did I bring up? I brought up the windows.
The windows.
Definitely the windows. I
Right.
think for me to approve it, I'd like to see an improvement to the vinyl.
Would that be windows all the way around or just the front elevation?
I would just do everything. There's not that many windows. I mean, because you got the sides and you got
Existing house pictures.
2021.
how many?
About 20. Eight could be existing.
You know, I'm looking at the existing pictures of the house, and it seems as though the entrance is currently siding. And then looking at the kind of west view as well, it looks like the side of that is siding as well. So I would think the house is mostly siding. I can't recall from...
I thought it was all siding.
Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
plaster.
It's all siding. So if it's a matter of cost, it's almost more efficient to go all siding, because then you're not replacing it, unless they have to reskin the whole building. But I tend to agree with the comments that are made in that it's a modest redesign. It's a modest addition, I should say, in a tough, small lot. And it is well designed. So I think because it's such a small home, you're just better off picking one material and just making it all one material. I think it would read a lot better with horizontal wood hardyboard siding or whatever the material might be, as opposed to a combination of stucco and siding, because then when at the corners you always have an issue. How do you combine, how do you connect them, and a lot of those issues would be eliminated if you just go with siding altogether. I agree with Mr. Yu's comments in that the trim should be copacetic all the way around, and maybe a 4-inch trim or something we could recommend. That would be...
Yeah.
The trim, which one are we, what's that?
Just around the windows. They're
Oh,
two
like a
different
border.
sizes.
Yeah.
Some look like 4 inches, some look like 6
Oh, I
inches.
didn't notice that. Should be all the same, I think, yeah.
And then there's an issue with the second floor in that the trim is so close to the top. So that's a better case to, I think, reduce it. But overall, it's a very simple approach is perhaps use of siding all the way around, consistent use of window trim,
Yeah.
perhaps a 4-inch.
Something small, yeah.
Something
Yeah.
smaller,
I agree.
of a consistent window trim. And as far as the windows are concerned, I personally think because of the modest location, because of the modest renovation, I would be okay with full vinyl on this. However, there's some strong support from the board to at least do something about the front street elevation with the use of something as one notch above vinyl. So I'd like to just throw that out there, that I'm okay with all vinyl on this sort of addition in this neighborhood. But those are my thoughts, but I support the project. So I think the only thing left over is
Can we make at least a requirement on just the front? For
if the board feels as though I'll go either way on it. I don't feel strongly about it. Just
I mean, I would consider conditional the front and consider the house going to the paintable fiberglass.
Just for the front.
Just looking at...
Condition that. That would be, that's my Rubicon.
This one.
Would that be the front, just to make sure I'm understanding, and maybe the windows that are visible from the side? as you wrap around?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting point.
No?
I would, what's visible from the street should be not vinyl. I got an issue with white vinyl windows.
Right.
Well, Mr. Yu and Mr. Insua, any strong feelings about windows? So we could just move along and...
It has an impact, that sliding door over the balcony, over the garage door, that thing in vinyl would not look good. It will look terrible, I think, because the profiles of the vinyls are very small.
Yeah, I
So
think these two members.
I think
are
at least you
looking
should
for
be able to do the front,
being- Yeah, I'm
fiberglass, and
supporting
then
that.
the sides will just let it go. If it's a cost issue, which I'm sure it is. But if you can do the whole house in a plexiglass, fiberglass, certainly it'll be better. But at least the front, So I vote yes if we just make it a requirement just for the front.
For the front. Okay. Okay, is that enough direction, Mr. Collins?
Yes. The only question is, did the board also want to go with the modification to the roof
Yes.
that was mentioned?
I would support that. Yes.
I agree.
Oh, yes. To make it a gable end.
Now, are we agreement on the siding? Are we requiring that they make a siding all the way? No plaster, or are we?
It certainly would make it look better. On that, I'd be a little more considerate as opposed to condition it, but it would make it look better by going, more the siding discussion as you had indicated.
Yeah, all the way around the house, not just over the garage.
Yeah, consider doing the whole house.
Okay. Would the board agree with just requiring just the garage?
Yes.
And consideration for the rest of the
Yes.
house?
Sounds good.
Yeah, I would do that.
Mr. Loomis would like to make a comment.
As you're considering your comments and conditions, the staff report also has some comments as it relates to the windows about being double hung or fixed panel. It'd be useful if you could
Yeah, these are sliders.
comment
Some of them are
on that
sliders.
opinion.
I think you should be consistent. Either you go double hung. I think a house like this, double hung would probably look better.
Right.
Because you have a hybrid, and you have double hung, and you have sliders. In some cases, you even have casement right there. So I would consolidate that. Either make them all double hung, or you make them all.
So at least I hear.
Yeah,
Mr. Elliott.
although the only two I think should stay as either hopper windows or the top window on the south elevation, because you'll never get a double hung out of that thing.
Oh, right.
Which ones?
And
The
then,
ones over the front?
yeah, on the south elevation at the top, more like a hopper window or an
Right.
awning window, and then the
East
same,
elevation.
and the east elevation, that same horizontal
Yeah.
one.
Right.
Right. But the rest could be double hung, right? Now, there's a bedroom issue here, there's an escape issue where the windows have to be a certain width.
Yeah, on the north elevation, that 4x4, it's going to have to be higher or taller
For safety egress?
for egress.
Yeah, you need on the bedrooms.
For the double hung.
I suppose if the double hung, it was about 20-inch by, to get the measurements, but you probably could get it in double hung, but you have to make it wider.
At any rate, I hear a desire for consistent operation, either
Consistent,
dongle hung
whatever
or
it is,
slider.
whether it's double hung or whether it's, right.
With the exception of those, as Mr. Insua referred to them as the hopper windows, the small ones in the.
I agree.
And then there was also a comment here about recessing the windows from the wood trim or the wall itself. Do you want to support?
Are you?
Well, I was just asking about the 2x6, because that's what they're calling out for. But
Sorry,
Here we- hand signals.
The windows that I identified as hopper would actually be better as awning windows.
That's what I noted.
Yeah. They actually show them as fixed transits, I think.
Okay. Should we read back the condition comments? for
Yeah, let me read
clarity
it back
purposes?
just to make sure I've got it all. The second-story roof should be gable to match the existing first-floor roof. Second, that the windows visible from the front shall be fiberglass clad, and the rear and sides are okay to be vinyl. They are to be consistent, either double hung or a casement. And the top windows on the south elevation and west elevation, the smaller ones, shall be awning windows. And there should, I guess it's conditioned also that the trim shall be 4 inches around all the windows and be consistent. And then a condition that siding be on the garage face, wrap around to the side of the house up to the first window to match the front, and a consideration that the whole house be horizontal siding, either hardy plank or wood.
And the previous comment, the front, the garage door opening be clad with siding and around the corner to the first window.
Right.
That's what it's the garage corner, right?
Right. Siding on the garage face, yes. Did I get it all?
My one note would be to, back to vinyl windows, sorry, gentlemen, and, is to consider matching the windows around the house as a consideration as opposed to saying.
Right, we did say that.
Right, as you read it, there was a condition on the front and vinyls were okay around. I'd like it at least to say consider matching the windows all around. Matching the material.
The fiberglass.
Do you want with the fiberglass, but not with the vinyl?
Right.
I want to condition it on the street view and consider it for the rest of the house.
So to consider the rest of the house to be fiberglass.
Right. To make them matching, right.
That's
or
a
fiberglass
consideration.
clad.
Right. Because if they start painting windows, it'll be a problem if some are vinyl and some are fiberglass.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Come on, we've been making them all day long. It's your turn at that.
I'll make a motion to approve with the stated conditions.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There you go. Thank you, gentlemen.
This will be roll call. Mr. Aliano?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Insua?
Yes.
Mr. Yu?
Yes.
Chairman Simonian?
Yes.
It's approval and a 5-0 vote with the conditions as specified.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Thank you.
Our next item is the approval of minutes from February 19, 2009.
I'll move approval of the minutes as presented. I read them.
Were they in your pack?
No. The email.
Okay, so Board Member Ellis has made the motion to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
I was not there, so I must abstain from it.
I apologize. I don't recall if I was at that
Actually,
meeting.
I was absent.
Board Member Ellis and you and Insua were all here.
Yes, you
and
were here.
Board Member Eliano and
Made some
Simonian
good
were
remarks.
not present.
I'll second.
So I have a second by Board Member Yu. So in terms of a roll call, Board Member Ellis,
Yes.
Yes.
Board Member Insua,
Yes.
Board Member Yu.
Yes.
Passes 3-0. And last but not least, we started with our meeting off with was the election of the chair.
And now we're back to it again.
Now we are back
With an empty room.
with an empty room.
But the public is watching.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Any
Okay.
recommendations?
Dive in.
Well, I think we should keep a tradition, let members that have been on the board for a while to sort of take a turn. And I think Mr. Yu has been on the board for a while, and
Can you believe
I'd
it?
like to nominate him. Year and a half, 2 years? Is that okay with everyone? Well, I guess I'll find out in a minute.
And Mr. Simonian has done an excellent job. One meeting, I think Mr. Yu did come in and did a very good job, too, and I could support that.
Okay, we have a motion
Spread the grief, kind of.
And a second?
and a second. And so in terms of a roll call, Board Member Eliano,
Yes.
Board Member Ellis,
Yes.
Board Member Insua,
Yes.
Chairperson Simonian.
Yes.
I would assume that you are accepting the nomination, Board Member Yu.
I'll say yes.
Yes.
Sure.
The motion passes, and our new chairman is Chairperson Yu. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Simonian, for all your efforts.
Yes, thank you.
Well,
Pleasure and
thank you.
congratulations.
Done a great job.
Thank you.
And
Does
with
that mean he's buying tonight?
Yes.
Right
Go to
now,
Jack's in
we-
about 20 minutes.
It is 7:30. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move
to
we adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Adjourn.
All right.